Today we're looking at Private Reserve's Ebony Green. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Private Reserve's Ebony Green is a green ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Nemoscience Singularity to take my notes for this video. Before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is a chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. Now we see a light blue line across the bottom and some blue pushing up. We see the green come in and then this kind of purple up top. It's a very interesting mix of colors. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and this is a strange chromatography because it traveled farther than the original one. The blue line on the bottom is slightly darker, the blue line on the bottom, and then you get that light that pushes up that light blue, the green comes in, we start getting some of the purple across the top. It's interesting that after it dries, we get to see a lot more of what's actually there. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, we see that this ink does not like highlighters. It doesn't like being reactivated at all. It explodes all over the place. I would not use this ink if I had to highlight while taking notes. Water, while it completely reactivates and pulls up most of the ink, there's this kind of minty green that's left behind. Now, I've seen that minty green a couple of times with some different inks, but we get this very light green that's left, and we see some of the blue left behind in some of the areas. It's interesting that most of it pulls up, though. Pen Flush does very much the same thing as water. It doesn't pull anything extra off the page. What we get from this is the fact that water is all that we should need to take this off the page or out of your pen. Bleach completely obliterates it. It doesn't look like it was there at all. There's no yellow staining, nothing. It's just gone. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Private Reserve's Ebony Green has a viscosity of 1.61, which makes it a very wet ink. This has a high flow. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Private Reserve's Ebony Green has an average dry time of 7 seconds. Wow, that's a fast drying ink. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form. Start that over again. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at Clairefontaine. Other than where I'm putting it on stupid thick, we get no bleeding. It's only starting to even bleed there. It doesn't actually come all the way through. We get no ghosting. The 1.1. I got a feeling that's not a 1.1 and that's me having made a mistake. I missed it. That is not a 1.1. I'm just going to go ahead and put that because I have no comments there for that as a 1.1. It's certainly not. Look at that next to the fine. That's probably the medium. Anyway, extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do get some shading in here. We get a nice dark green that goes to black ink. Finally, one of their ebony inks performs the way we would hope it could, and this one does. At last. 4 seconds to dry. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, we get shading. Again, that nice dark green to black.
and 9 seconds to dry. When we look at the scrubby, both the extra fine and the medium, not seeing it there, both the extra fine and the medium, not seeing it there. The camera doesn't like this green. I'm going to see if I can get it in post. But it does show a little bit of color variation here. Not tons, but some. Look at the far left to far right. Trying to help the focus. The far left to far right of the scrubby. And you can see some color variation. The smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared it. So I look at Tomoe River, which gives us no bleeding, no bleeding and ghosting. The 1.1, which is a 1.1 now, has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading on this paper. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. They're still green at least. They're not black. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. And the smear, that's a 50-50. You might be capable of recovering that. So I looked at Rhodia paper. Rhodia gave us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gave no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, but it does give us some color variation. Again, that nice dark green to black. With the extra fine, we get the same tones, the same behaviors. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It does show some shading. It's just that it's a dark green to black. It's really quite nice to look at in person. I know that on camera it looks the same. It's because it's a dark green to black. We can see it quite nicely on the quick, the IC to K. We see it very nice. We see it in jumps very nicely from the M to P. We see it very nicely where L starts darker, A gets lighter, Z gets darker again. So we do see it. It's just a dark green to black. If a dark green to black is what you want in an ink, take a look at this one. 4 seconds to dry. So finally I got the singularity out because I thought, you know what? The dry pen's the way to go. And I put that there's a need for a very dry pen. I'm getting more of the green with the Nimacine fine. It makes me want to maybe in the future try some of their larger nibs. I know they have a stub nib. I'm wondering if I tried one of their stub nibs, because their pens tend to be pretty dry, if that would help with some of this stuff. I just don't know, nothing against the pen. I have no problem with the pen. I don't know that I want another one of the Nimacine pens. The medium, a noticeably darker tone. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do still get some of the color variation in here. The Q in quick looks darker than the UIC, and the K looks darker again. Jumps is a darker word than fox. So we get color variation throughout on the medium, and only 7 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for the extra fine and the medium show us that we do get color variation. The camera's lying to you right now. You're a liar, camera. All right. I bought the truth-telling model. All right. The camera's lying to you about it right now, but it does show some color variation. The smear test, you could definitely recover that. So I decided to look at this particular one on a yellow Rhodia. I really like looking at this. I think I'm going to do it a lot more. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives, looking at the tone difference, look at the medium difference, how much darker it gets. It gets much darker, but it gets lighter with the 1.1. So it's an interesting thing that it gets darker in those cases, and again, the 1.1 being like a squeegee that pushes the ink away, and that could be what helps it out. So the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. We don't have any shading here. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading, 3 seconds to dry. Again, it's a darker tone. It's really hard to see the difference from the green to black, although it is darker on the medium. With no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby showed us no color variation. We got no color variation. We lost it on the yellow paper. I still believe on that smear you could recover it. So I tested this out on North Books. that had no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gave us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. And dark. It's almost black. It's almost black. Blacker on camera, but almost black. Again, I'm going to have to try and fix this color in post. But look at this smear. Look at how super dark that is. The 1.1, or sorry, the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. This paper is a sponge, 1 second to dry. With 1 second to dry, we have no bleeding and no ghosting. That's pretty good. Look at that. The same with the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. 1 second to dry and no bleed. Wow. The scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any. The smear test says you could definitely recover it. And now look at that. With as absorbent a paper as this is, and the scrubby, we can see it got deep right there, but nothing else. Very nice stuff. So I tested it on field notes. It definitely got deep at the scrubby, but that's about it. It didn't come all the way through. So I wouldn't call this bleed because I don't see it at all in the writing. We have no ghosting. The 1.1, we do have some light feathering all over. It's not distracting. It's not making it fully blurry. You just sort of see a something, like in the Private. You see a something on the G. So you see the feathering happening. It is not distracting. It is not a woolly mammoth. It's not a problem. The extra fine, I'm sorry, the 1.1, it has the feathering. It has no spread, no halo, sheen, or shade. The extra fine, it has no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. And Field Notes paper hasn't been historically great with fountain pens. It's not been the worst in the world, but this is not coming through. This is the steno pad. So I'm liking how the steno pad worked, and I like the steno pad, so I might have to look at them and try them out when I go to like year 2 on keeping my notes, because I'm keeping all my notes right now on Rhodia pads. I don't know. I'll check out the price difference. 1 second to dry with the extra fine. Medium, we do get some light feathering. We see some light feathering starting on the F. We see some light feathering starting on the J. We see some light feathering starting on the Z. So it's there. Not a problem, really, especially this type of notebook that you just go to class, take your notes while you're there kind of thing. Not bad. And 2 seconds to dry. Again, this paper is working like a sponge, but it's not bleeding through. It's not ghosting. Even with the lighter background. Not ghosting. Very nice stuff. Scrubby shows us no color variation. We got no color variation, but the smear test says you can likely recover it if you smear it. That makes this a winner. That's all I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Private Reserve's Ebony Green, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now, this is a very dark green, so my choice might seem odd, but I was thinking kind of monochromatic, in that a light green along with this very dark green would look quite nice. And I chose Krishna's Mint because it's kind of a yellow green, and I felt that very light with the dark would be spectacular. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Private Reserve's Ebony Green? Finally, one of their ebony inks that performs as you would expect it. It's got some nice dark greens. It's got almost blackish areas to it. And when you use it in a drier nib, it is spectacular. This one I love. Thanks for watching.